Hi, welcome to yet another episode here on CAS Sports, where we discuss nothing but football, not only in Uganda, on the African continent, and sometimes beyond the continent. Clive Jaze is my name, and just to let you know that you can be part of this discussion by commenting in the comment section of this episode. You can also be part of this discussion by mere liking. You can be part of this discussion by sharing this link to some of the people that you think will actually enjoy the kind of discussion that we are having here. And we do always appreciate those who go out of their way to share our content, to comment it on our content, to correct us, to critique us, but also to give us some shout outs. Now, the kind of discussion that we are going to be having today is one that is taking a little bit of a legal direction. We shall be talking to a lawyer, a sports lawyer at that, but also a man who is an arbitrator at the Court of Arbitration for sports. Recently, we did get news that KCCA FC were taking the issue or matter of Gavin Kizito Mugweri to the Court of Arbitration for sports after the judicial bodies at the Federation of Uganda Football Associations didn't treat the matter with justice, according to them. Of course, just to give you a little bit of a background, KCFC fielded Gavin Kizito Mugweri in their Uganda Premier League game. It was their last Uganda Premier League game in the first round against Mbarara City at Kacheka Stadium. But Gavin Kizito Mugweri was ineligible to play in that fixture, depending on some of the records that were presented, because he had been cautioned thrice, and the competition rules in Uganda said that if you're booked 3 times, you actually miss the next fixture. Some records show that Gavin Kizito Mugweri was booked in the game against Neck Football Club, in the game against Mbarara City. The other game was actually in a game against Neck Football Club, in the game against Police Football Club, and the other game was against Mbari Heroes. That meant that he wasn't eligible to play in the fixture against Mbarara City. However, the match report in the game against the Neck Football Club that was submitted by the referee at the time, George William Oloya, didn't indicate that Gavin Kizito had been booked, much as the game was live on TV. So Mbarara City get the information. After getting the information, they do petition the FUFA disciplinary committee that rules in favor of Mbarara City, meaning that KCFC did forfeit the game. 3 points were awarded to Mbarara City, and of course 3 goals. KCFC, because they felt that the decision wasn't one that probably favored them, they took the matter up to the FUFA Appeals Committee, and of course the FUFA Appeals Committee sided with the FUFA Disciplinary Committee, and still, because they are not satisfied, because they feel that they have substantial evidence to prove that Gavin Kizito was eligible to play in that fixture against Mbarara City, they took this case to the Court of Arbitration for Sports in Switzerland. And of course, the last we heard was that the Court of Arbitration for Sports had indeed received the KCCA FC's case. They had written back to KCFC together with the Federation, requesting FUFA, or giving FUFA 10 days to submit their defense before the case can be heard. So with that kind of background, we tried to catch up with Timothy Kajja, who I told you is a sports lawyer, who is also an arbitrator at the Court of Arbitration for Sports, to try and help us understand how exactly do things work. What is the procedure of taking a case there? What does it take for the case to get there? Is it as expensive as we think it is? Here's our discussion with Timothy Kajja. Yes, Timothy, probably we'll start by you helping us define and understand the term, the Court of Arbitration for Sports.
All right, thank you. The Court of Arbitration for Sport is the Supreme Court for all sports matters, be it football, be it rugby, netball. Every international federation association has in its constitution a clause that directs that all matters of dispute will be ultimately handled by the Court of Arbitration for Sport. So that is our Supreme Court, including the IOC itself. All international sports bodies and federations all subscribe. It's one of the pillars that makes the sports world as is, and it follows from the principle that we call the specificity of sport. in that sport has specific aspects that we cannot take to ordinary civil courts. And we agree to respect that autonomy and specificity of sport. We all go to the Court of Arbitration for Sport as the last resort or as our Supreme Court.
And then maybe also we'll need to know, how does it work? Now, of course, we've read so many stories where people go to the Court of Arbitration for Sports and they are very successful. And then there are those who go to the Court of Arbitration for Sports and they are not successful. Specifically for Uganda, we've had a couple of cases, or people have taken cases to the Court of Arbitration for Sports, and we've not had any successful person. How do these things work? Why do people fail to be successful, and why are some others are successful with their cases?
How it works, it has divisions, and it has division for those who agree that they may take their dispute as is to the Court of Arbitration for Sport. That is one line of it. Then there is what they call the appellate division. This is where appeals from other bodies, for example in Uganda, FUFA, if you are appealing, you go to the appeal division. Now, inside CAS itself, it has a layer of appeal. So CAS, there is a CAS above CAS, which is ICAS. So there is a level of appeal. But what limits many Ugandans and many persons from, you could say from southern part of the equator, is that we are limited by the financing involved. It is very, very costly to sustain an arbitration at CAS. One, you need, of course, the legal fees for starters. Then you need to pay arbitration fees, which is at least $1,000 US. Then after that, either you or the president of the division that you've gone to will appoint 1 to 3 arbitrators. And all of those arbitrators may be accompanied by a clerk. And then the arbitrators may also ask for expert witnesses. Now, all these guys bill you at once. And they say, look, you want us to resolve this matter, this is our bill. Now, the burden is on you to pay the bill. And if you don't pay, they don't start. Ideally, the law says that each party should meet the cost halfway. But the practice is that the person who you're suing will not pay. So if they don't pay, then you have to pay 100% of the bills. But of course, if you win, they'll pay you back. But for that, you pay 100% of the bill. Now, what happens is that you have to look for ways to mitigate and get as few arbitrators as possible, which is often one arbitrator. Now, if you get that one arbitrator, before when you go there, it's prudent that you engage the party that you are going to CAS with. In that, ask them if they have any reasons why you should have 3 arbitrators. If they have no valid reasons, then the president of the division that you're going to will give you an arbitrator. If they insist on more than one, then it will be mandatory for them to pay half the price. So we use that as a technique to limit on the cost that we use while going there. The other thing that we do is, of course, we try as much as possible to get persons that are accredited to have access to the CAS portal. When you have access to the CAS portal, few lawyers do, then you can do many of your filings online. That means that you cut out the query services. I don't need every time to run to CAS. You can do some of these things remotely until the D-day, the hearing date. And by the time you get the hearing date, you want that your questions as minimal as possible, straight to the point. So that way you can have your hearing done in one day. If you have one arbitrator, a hearing in one day, probably one witness and the other witnesses online, then that way you keep your costs low.
Then, of course, the question that has been asked the most in the instance of KCFC deciding that the issue of Gavin and FUFA will be going to CAS. Many fans have been wondering why KCCFC is willing to spend that amount of money to go to CAS, money they feel that probably should be invested in trying to improve or make their squad stronger. If you could just try to estimate for us, probably, what's the list that can be spent on a case, and what is the most that can be spent on a case at that level?
It is. I don't want to get into the KCCA matters because they have their own spokespersons, but I can give you an average. And like I said, firstly, you pay the 1K administrative fee. Then if you are lucky enough to keep your costs minimum, I don't say this is what KCCA will do or any club will do, but if you're lucky enough and you handle your case well, you have good rapport with the division president, Rapport, I mean, of course, this is not the Ugandan, the way we understand it, but you've been smart in how you've approached this. You'll get around 8,000 to 12,000 US dollars. That is a good deal for you. But these are all just estimates, and it's a case-by-case basis. Every case will get its own arbitrator, its own clerk, and its own expert witnesses if necessary. And that is, the other guys will bill you because they bill you privately, and then you have to pay whatever they bill you.
Then the duration of the case, we've had cases where that it is estimated that probably sometimes it takes years, sometimes months and stuff like that. In this incident, like how long does it take for a case to be heard and get done with? And what usually on average, what's the shortest time and what the longest time?
Averagely for CAS, it's 90 days. But if you play your cards well, you can have, like I said, you can have your hearing in 1 day. And this is not a justice that we are used to in Ugandan standards. Just to give you an example from the FIFA and the FAD bio case, it was heard on 16th January, and by end of January you had the result. So they don't really take time if you handle your things well. So you can even get it as quick as an average of 30 days, but can go up to 90 days. Of course, those who mishandle it may go above that, but for a quick one, 30 days is the average. For a moderate one, 90 days is the average.
So ideally, in the case of KAS and FUFA, people don't really need to fly to Switzerland to see this case through. It's a case that can be heard remotely or virtually.
Yes, it may be heard remotely, but chances are you may have a couple of persons travel to Lausanne. Those are the chances are. Because why? These persons want to see, want to have a feel of your body language, how you approach to it, to help them see who really is doing this in good faith or bad faith. So in very, very, very rare circumstances, do you complete everything online. So the normal thing is that, or if you want, and of course if you're cutting the cost, is that you have 1 or 2 persons, that is probably your legal counsel and 1 witness travel for each party. So if there are 2 parties, that means you may have between 3 to 4. If you really handled your matter well, you may have only 4 people travel, and then that is done for the travel. Here you have it in 1 hearing, and you're done. The arbitrator and the clerk, those ones you find them already catered for in Lausanne.
But of course, this is an issue that has more than one stakeholders. Of course, you're talking about KCCA on one side, you're talking about FUFA on the other side. You have the Uganda Premier League in the fixture, you have the FUFA display panel, you have Mbara City themselves, you have the FUFA Appeals Committee. Like at the level of CAS, which parties would they really be interested in seeing physically?
Yes, one of the things that is different from sports justice and ordinary justice is that in our ordinary courts, you see people flock the courts of law. But I can tell you that in sports matters, by the time you get to a hearing, it is so streamlined that you're resolving 1 or 2, 3 questions. And they wouldn't need the entire league, Mbara or something, because Mbara won't have much to tell us in Lausanne. So they want people who can help them resolve 1 to 3 questions. So the numbers are few. The rest of them can have their opinions or whatever evidence they want to file done online. So although it has many stakeholders involved, yes, but probably people like, let's say you look at the UPL, they could be stakeholders, but if the question that we're asking, the UPL will be redundant in resolving any of those. So they can stay in Kampala. If anything, they can file their affidavits, and then we have them tabled in Lausanne.
Okay, lastly, if this case eventually is heard, it doesn't matter the outcome, KCC win, FUFA win, or whoever, how do you think it will shape the sports landscape in Uganda, especially football?
Yes, of course, the benefit is that whatever outcome there may be, is that will be the first Ugandan club to file a case at CAS. So that will be something to cheer about, because our sport is growing. And like we say, FAD Bio has already won a case at
Timothy, maybe like to file and be successful for their case to be heard, or to file, because there was the issue of Proline. Yes.
Of course, if the Proline case never came to its completion, it stopped somewhere.
So it doesn't qualify.
So it doesn't qualify as a case. If you try to track it in CAS, it's not there. So this would be the first one that will indicate growth. Because we already had a win at the FIFA tribunal, and we're having another case, which is in either case a win for Ugandan sport, also at CAS. So even it's also a wake-up call for the people who do sports justice locally, because many of these federations, associations, they want to put themselves there as the alpha and omegas, and they don't want anyone to check them. They want to flow with whatever opinions hold, but they all know that if they don't do their job right, there's someone to check them, and Ugandans are willing to poke that person to check whoever does not want to listen to advice given here locally.
Maybe lastly, as we wind up, going by your socials, you were very much involved in the Fahad bio case. Just try to help us what exactly was happening, why did he take that route, and what was the outcome?
Yes, for Fahad Bayo, like we all know him, he needs no introduction. He was a Ugandan striker playing for the Cranes and playing in Czech Republic. So he was called up to play for the Cranes here. And after that, he had to travel back to Czech Republic. But when he was midway the flight, the people in his Czech club, they sent him messages that terminated his contract when he's mid-air. So by the time he lands, there is usually no one to pick him. So of course he gets in touch with the agent who gets in touch with me. I tell him, of course, for now, since it's late, you've just landed, just find a hotel and resolve it the following day. So he found the hotel, and the next day I told him to go to the club. He went to the club. He wasn't given access. He went back to the hotel room. We spoke with the president, the manager, and they did indicate that they weren't really interested in whatever was going on, and they had terminated him. But I told them, you cannot.
Did they give reason why they had terminated his contract?
Of course, they had no valid reason. They could give some, but that's why they were faulted. They had no valid reasons. But in any case, you cannot wait for someone to take a flight and then you send termination letter mid-air. That is a no-go, really. So we asked him to just come back, because of course he was spending a lot of money in the hotel. So he came back, and we got in touch with Viskov, the club. They weren't willing to settle the matter amicably. So we had, luckily for him, which is not often lucky for other players, that by the time he signed the contract, we had a look at it and given FIFA route to settle that dispute. Because what happens is that these players will just sign blindly after seeing the money, and then to find out that if anything happens, you have to go to another country. Let's say you have to fly to Japan or the States and have your matter heard there for many days. So that is also injurious for the players to look out. You must make sure that even after you look at the money, make sure that FIFA can hear your case. So FIFA was able to hear his case. They did accept our pleadings, and like I said, by 16th January, we did have the hearing. Those ones, we managed to have them fully online. No need to fly there. That's keeping the cost low. And 10 days later, they were happy to give a ruling in favor of Fahad Bayo.
That was at FIFA level or CAS level?
That was at FIFA level.
Okay.
Yeah, because FIFA also has internally its tribunals, which are like, you could compare them to the High Court and Courts of Appeal here in our local setting. So, but whoever is not also happy with what FIFA has said may go to CAS. But the numbers show us that 80% of those who appeal from FIFA to CAS do not succeed.
Which one is cheaper, FIFA or CAS?
FIFA is much cheaper because the chances for you having the hearings online is high.
Okay.
Yet for CAS, the chances of you having the hearings offline, at least for one day, is also high. So FIFA is more of online, CAS is more physical.
No. So why couldn't probably KCFC explore their FIFA routes and just go straight to CAS?
Now I don't want to go into the details of that, but just know in these circumstances, if you read the FUFA statutes, it will send you to CAS.
Oh.
But there is a route to go to the tribunal, although that is something that is confidential legal opinion that I cannot share with KCCFC.
Thank you very much, Sir.
You're welcome.
Well, I hope you enjoyed it, and I hope you was able to answer most of the questions that you had lingering in your mind. That's all we had for you. And make sure that you catch us again in the next episode. Just remind you that you can be part of the discussion by mere commenting in the comment section of this episode. You can be part of this discussion by just liking our link. You can be part of this discussion by sharing this link to most of your friends that you feel probably that this discussion might be useful to them. I remain Clive Chaze, and yes, catch you again in the next episode.